You're watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Sanova, and let's begin with the top headlines making news around the world. Hundreds are dead and nearly 1,000 remain missing after devastating floods across Nepal and Tibet. Iran says it's preparing conditions to reopen the Strait of Hormuz as regional mediators push to revive stalled diplomacy. And President Donald Trump says Vladimir Putin will not attack NATO territory while downplaying the CIA director's recent trip to Moscow. We begin in Asia. The death toll from devastating flash floods in Nepal has risen to 469, with nearly 1,000 people still missing in Nepal and neighboring Tibet.
Rescue teams are using heavy machinery, helicopters and search dogs to recover bodies and look for survivors after a massive surge of water, ice, mud and debris swept through Himalayan river valleys. Authorities are now warning of a possible second disaster as debris blocking the Botakoshi River has created a lake that is continuing to rise. China says millions of cubic meters of water could flow into the area in the coming days, raising concerns over further flooding. The disaster destroyed roads, bridges and power facilities along a key route connecting Kathmandu with Lhasa in Tibet. At least 540 missing people are foreign nationals, including tourists and pilgrims. Japan says 5 of its citizens believed to be on a tour in Nepal are missing.
The Japanese government will continue to make every effort to ensure the safety of Japanese nationals.
Australia says the number of missing Australians has risen to 39 and has announced $3.6 million in aid for affected communities.
We've got about 20 people now deployed or who are employed by Australia in Nepal. We are adding to that. We will build on those resources over the next days as we are able and depending on the need.
International rescue and relief efforts are continuing as authorities race against time to find those still missing and prevent further damage.
Rescue operations have resumed in parts of Nepal after a landslide-created lake overflowed, briefly forcing teams to suspend work and adding a new danger to a disaster that has already killed at least 469 people and left more than 1,000 missing across Nepal and Tibet. Among those still unaccounted for are hundreds of foreign nationals, while families in Nepal and abroad continue to wait for news of their loved ones.
A new threat is complicating rescue efforts along the Nepal-China border. A landslide has created a lake that is now overflowing, forcing rescue teams to temporarily suspend operations in some areas. Residents in Nepal's Nuwakot district have been evacuating to higher ground in Trishuli amid fears that river levels could rise further. The disaster has killed hundreds of people across Nepal and Tibet, with more than 1,000 people still missing across Nepal and Tibet. Among those unaccounted for are foreign nationals, including tourists and pilgrims from the United States, India, Australia, the UK and other countries. At emergency centres, families are checking lists of those rescued and missing, hoping for news of their loved ones. In Nuwakot, one relative described the anguish of not knowing what happened to his brother.
My brother should be rescued. I don't know how and where he is. He has been missing for 3 days.
The disaster has also triggered an international search for missing travellers. Among them is Srinivas Sudhir Rangu, an Indian-born US resident who was trekking towards Tibet's Mount Kailash with 9 friends when the flood struck. His wife, Sneha Sudhir, says the group has been out of contact since the disaster.
It's more than stressing out. It's devastating, right? So because first thing, I am not sure what my family is going through right there. And I have lost contact, or we have lost contact for last 48 hours. Emotionally taking us a toll on. We are here and we are looking for authorities to help, but we have got no one who's coming forward to help us give information.
Sudhir says the families of the missing men are supporting one another and trying to obtain information from authorities in Nepal, India and the United States. Her home has become a coordination point, with family members and friends helping manage calls and messages as they wait for updates. Rescue teams continue searching in difficult conditions, but the overflowing landslide lake and the risk of further flooding are making the operation even more dangerous.
The name of one of North America's Great Lakes has become the latest flashpoint between Washington and Ottawa. As trade tensions continue, a dispute over history, identity and geography is now playing out on both sides of the border.
US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order seeking to rename Lake Ontario as Lake America. A White House aide said the order directs the US Department of the Interior and Secretary Doug Burgum to carry out the change, with the new name taking effect immediately on the US side.
And finally, I guess the purpose of this more than anything else is we're going to be changing the name of Lake Ontario, effective immediately, to Lake America. That's going to take place right now as I sign the order.
Lake Ontario is one of North America's 5 Great Lakes. It sits between the Canadian province of Ontario and the US state of New York. For Canada, the message from Ottawa is clear. The lake will remain Lake Ontario. In a post on X, Prime Minister Mark Carney said the name is more than 400 years old. He said it predates both the creation of Canada and the United States.
It's ridiculous. I'm behind Carney all the way, and I'm from Alberta, and so I'm kind of embarrassed to say I'm from Alberta because our Premier isn't on Team Canada 100%, but as individuals in Alberta, there are lots of us who are on Team Canada with Carney to stand up to Trump in any possible way, and there is no way that that is Lake America. It's Lake Ontario.
It should be left as it was originally. There's no reason just bullying. America think that they can just bully the world at the moment, and it's not on. It all stems from these trade negotiations, and Canada has got the upper hand all the time.
The dispute comes at a sensitive time for US-Canada relations. Trade talks between the two countries broke down last week after 3 days of intensive negotiations. Washington and Ottawa have each blamed the other for the collapse.
US President Donald Trump says Russian President Vladimir Putin will not attack NATO territory. Donald Trump made the remarks on Thursday amid continued concerns over Russian sabotage and other activities in Europe that fall short of open warfare, but could test NATO unity and support for Ukraine.
I've had good talks with him. He's not going to be attacking a NATO territory. So far, I think Russia's behaved quite well, having to do with the Strait of Hormuz. And you have to understand, for everything they do, we do also.
Norway's King Harald V has died at the age of 89 after being treated in hospital for a rare blood condition. The royal palace in Oslo said the monarch passed away peacefully at the National Hospital early Friday morning. Members of the royal family had visited him before his death, while people gathered outside the palace to leave flowers and pay tribute. Harald became king in 1991 and served on the throne for 35 years. He was Norway's first monarch born in the country since the 14th century. He will be succeeded by his son, Crown Prince Haakon. Efforts to ease tensions and revive diplomacy in the region are continuing, with the Strait of Hormuz at the center of the latest developments. According to Iranian officials, Tehran is preparing conditions for reopening the vital waterway.
Iran's Supreme National Security Council Secretary Mohsen Rezaieh said on Thursday that mediators had asked Tehran to set out its demands. He said ending the regional war would be among the conditions. Rezaieh also said Iran had reached an understanding with Oman on a shipping corridor through the strait, with part of the route in Omani waters and part in Iranian waters, but the two sides are still working out the details. He said ships could use a designated central channel if the United States met Iran's conditions. The guards also said the waterway would not reopen unless Washington lifted what Tehran calls a blockade of Iranian ports, paid compensation and removed sanctions. On Thursday, Qatar's Prime Minister traveled to Tehran in another attempt to revive stalled diplomacy. Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani urged Iranian officials to return to negotiations and stressed the importance of freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz under international law. But US President Donald Trump said on Thursday that Washington was not currently talking to Tehran. The White House has said its economic pressure campaign will continue until Iran agrees to negotiate meaningfully. Major combat operations have been paused for weeks, but there has been little progress on a peace deal or reopening the key oil route. Meanwhile, Iran wants to return to a June memorandum, allowing 60 days for negotiations, but Trump later declared it over. US commanders say American forces have cleared mines laid by Iran's Revolutionary Guards months ago. So far, the UN Maritime Agency says 70 incidents have occurred in the strait since the war began, killing 19 seafarers.
The Tehran-Washington tensions remain high as the Israeli-US war against Iran completed 6 months. Amid stalled peace talks, mediators from 3 regional countries, Pakistan, Oman and Qatar, visited Tehran in less than a week. A news correspondent Turaj Shirali-Low reports on the latest diplomatic contacts from Tehran.
The Israeli-US war against Iran, which broke out on 28th of February, entered its 7th month on Friday, while the capital Tehran hosted high-ranking officials from the regional countries, Pakistan, Oman and Qatar, to negotiate a way out of the current stalemate. Following the expiry of the fragile ceasefire deal between Tehran and Washington and stalled peace talks, renewed mediation efforts hit a fresh impasse with the announcement of stricter US economic sanctions on Iran last week. Pakistani Army Chief and top negotiator in the indirect Iran-US talks, Field Marshal Asim Munir, was the first dignitary to visit Tehran on Monday in a bid to revitalize the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding signed by Iranian and US presidents in June. He was followed by Omani Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi, who visited Iran's capital on Tuesday with an agenda to negotiate a bilateral agreement with the Islamic Republic about maritime traffic at the Strait of Hormuz. As the 2 littoral states at the strategic waterway linking the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, their top diplomats issued a joint statement saying Tehran and Muscat agreed on a provisional corridor at the narrow waterway and demining the strait. Tehran also hosted the Qatari Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Mohammed Al Thani on Thursday, who, according to unconfirmed news reports, was carrying a message from the US side for Iranian officials. Besides Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, the visiting Pakistani, Omani and Qatari officials met Iranian President, Parliament Speaker and key negotiator and Secretary of Supreme National Security Council and former Revolutionary Guards Commander. Turaj Shirali-Low from Tehran for A News.
When the United States and Israel launched the war on Iran in late February, President Donald Trump initially predicted it would last 4 to 5 weeks. 6 months later, the war is still going with no clear end in sight. Here is more.
On February 28th, the United States and Israel launched a massive joint military operation against Iran. At the time, US President Donald Trump said it would probably last 4 to 5 weeks. 6 months later, much has happened, and neither side has achieved a clear victory or brought the war to an end. But there have been major consequences. The war has shaken the global economy. It has caused major disruptions to global energy markets. Today, oil prices remain high, inflation has surged, and economic growth has slowed. There has been damage to both countries' militaries. Iran's military infrastructure has been severely degraded, including its air defenses, missile sites, and leadership. Many of Iran's top security officials and clerical leaders died in the initial wave of strikes. The country's national figurehead and religious leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was also killed. The US military has also suffered losses in terms of drones and aircraft, whether to Iranian fire or with accidents. An estimate by the Center for Strategic and International Studies said that by July, the US had used up about 2/3 of its Patriot interceptors. The war has also touched people's lives on both sides. Americans are weighing the economic costs and the prospect of a prolonged conflict that many didn't want in the first place.
Clearly it's not working. It's costing all the people of the United States lots of money. It's not getting any results that are good for our country. And clearly it's basically just an ego trip, but you know, we're pretty used to that now.
The same pressure is being felt in Iran. Shopkeepers say expanded U.S. sanctions are worsening their economic hardship, and not enough is being done to support everyday people.
In the way that we are under pressure, we are 100% distressed. The youth have many grievances against the officials who, really, in my opinion, they are traitors. Why? Because they truly do not attend to the people suffering. To me, being a responsible official means that the person should not rest. They should have iron shoes on their feet and be in the middle of the field alongside the people.
6 months into a war that was expected to last weeks, the fighting continues, costs are rising, and nobody knows when it will come to an end.
6 months into the Iran war, the impact is being felt across different industries. In southern Iran, fishermen and traders say security concerns and fuel shortages are disrupting their livelihoods, and seafood prices are rising.
The war has hit Iran's fishing industry, with fewer boats heading out to sea, causing seafood prices to rise. At the fish market in the southern port city of Bandar Abbas, traders say they're growing more concerned about security as fuel supplies are being squeezed.
The war has limited our fishing. Our fishermen rarely go out to sea now. It's nothing like before. Another impact has been on fuel supplies. Less fuel is reaching the boats, which has made matters even worse. As a result, fewer fish are being caught, and that drives up fish prices.
Bandar Abbas is one of Iran's most important coastal cities. It sits on the Strait of Hormuz, a vital shipping route for global energy supplies, but shipping has been severely disrupted since the end of February. The disruption comes as the war enters its 6th month, with no clear path to ending the conflict. President Donald Trump had previously predicted the war would be over in 4 weeks. Now, in apparent recognition that further military strikes won't force concessions from Iran, the United States is reverting to a campaign of economic pressure in hopes of further weakening Iran's government. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has told allies the US is unlikely to launch new attacks for the time being. But what happens next is unclear. For fishermen and fish traders in Bandar Abbas, the impact is already clear.
Turkey has dramatically increased diesel imports from the United States and India as disruptions to traditional supply routes force buyers to look further afield. Shipments from both countries have reached record levels this month, while Ankara's reliance on Russian diesel has fallen significantly. Adam Morrow reports from Istanbul.
Turkey is diversifying its diesel supplies as Russian export restrictions and disruptions caused by the US-Iran conflict reshape regional energy flows. Data from commodities firm Kepler shows that Turkey imported more than 120,000 barrels per day of Indian diesel in August. Imports from the United States, meanwhile, reached around 90,000 barrels per day. These are the highest monthly volumes from both countries in Kepler data going back to 2017. Energy Aspects, a market data provider, estimates somewhat lower volumes, but also points to a sharp increase in shipments from both countries. The shift comes as Turkey receives significantly less diesel from Russia, which has long been its main supplier. Russia recently banned diesel exports until at least the end of August, after Ukrainian strikes on its oil refineries disrupted domestic supplies. Meanwhile, war damage to Middle Eastern refineries and reduced shipping through the Strait of Hormuz have further constrained regional supplies, forcing Turkish importers to seek alternative sources. Kepler estimates that Russian diesel shipments to Turkey fell to around 80,000 barrels per day in August, down from more than 200,000 barrels per day during the earlier months of this year. Russia's share of Turkey's total diesel imports has consequently dropped to roughly 20%, marking a significant change. In 2025, Russia supplied around 85% of Turkey's imported diesel, according to the country's energy regulator. And the supply diversification may be set to continue into the short term. According to industry sources, Moscow may extend its diesel export ban into September, potentially keeping Turkey reliant on alternative suppliers like the US and India even longer. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
6 months into the US-Israel war with Iran, what was expected to be a short campaign has turned into a prolonged and costly stalemate. Tehran is now preparing conditions for reopening the strait, a development that could have major consequences for global energy markets. So what happens next, and can diplomacy finally break the deadlock? To discuss the future of the Iran war, the Strait of Hormuz, and the wider geopolitical consequences, we're joined from Lahore, Pakistan by Tayyab Iftikhar, international relations analyst. Mr. Iftikhar, thank you very much for making time to join us on the program.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome. It's a pleasure to be on your channel every time, and I hope we had a great conversation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Iftikhar, 6 months into the conflict, are we now looking at a stalemate rather than a conventional war with a clear military objective?
Yes, the clear military objective is very much debated even in the United States of America these days, that what were our objectives and what have we achieved so far. The United States of America is having its own reputation at stake right now. It's not just the Iranian regime that has its reputation on high stakes, it's also the United States of America. Inflation has grown high all over the world, especially in United States of America. Now, Americans are thinking that was voting for Trump a good decision. After the 28th of February 2026, they have seen so much that they are actually challenging their own decision right now. We are in a situation which can only be solved through mediation, through talks, through peace building measures. This war is not benefiting humanity. Middle East is suffering, Asia is suffering, entire Europe is suffering due to inflation and other challenges due to this war.
Mr. Iftikhar, President Donald Trump initially suggested the conflict could be resolved within weeks. What does the failure to achieve that outcome tell us about the limits of US military pressure against Iran?
Basically, United States of America needs to realize that it's true that the Islamic Revolution came in 1979 and Ayatollah Khamenei came into power, and since 1989 Ayatollah Imam Ali Khamenei was in power. But the thing is that Iran is a hundreds and thousands of years old civilization. It's not going to bow down in front of someone. Your question is valid that what has happened, and yes, Iran has showed that it's not Venezuela. It's not going to be easily pushed around. It's not Venezuela. It's not going to be easily pushed around. In fact, it's going to challenge a lot of things. So we can say that maybe some homework was missing during this war. And Iran is not ready to show itself soft. President Trump is not ready to show himself weak or soft. And I have always said that basic doctrine of President Donald Trump is he believes in achieving peace through strength. He believes in achieving peace through strength, through military might. So he is also going to show that he's a tough guy. And Iran has clearly stated even yesterday that we are not going to bow down in front of any international pressure.
But Washington now appears to be moving from military strikes towards sanctions and economic pressure. Can economic pressure achieve what military force has failed to accomplish?
I have seen some Iranians even joking at this. It's true that Iran is having a huge amount of inflation. In fact, the inflation has been very challenging for the Iranian people this entire year. But they are saying we have seen diplomatic blockades, we have seen military blockades, we have seen so much economic sanctions since 1979, since 1989, since 2006 and 2015, that these sanctions don't bother us anymore. Another factor in this entire war is that world has hugely changed. Even the Canadian Prime Minister has said that we are seeing the shaping of a new world order, and in this new world order, China is a big might, China is a big power, and China has clearly stated its support for the Islamic Republic of Iran. So I think the economic sanctions are something that are not going to shatter down the Iranian regime. In fact, even yesterday, the Iranian government has said that we will continue to target military bases as well as economic interest of the United States of America. So even the Americans note that there's going to be a flashback over this situation.
Mr. Iftikhar, the Strait of Hormuz has become one of the central issues in this conflict. Iran is now preparing conditions for reopening it. What do you expect Tehran's demands to be, and which of them could Washington realistically accept?
The demands would definitely be of such nature that would show that the Iranian regime has not compromised on the national interest, that the Iranian regime has not compromised on any national interest. They are not going to bow down. One of the things that may totally not be accepted by the United States of America, which may be unacceptable, and the Americans may clearly refuse it, that is that they are not going to agree that they are going to pay any charges. They are not going to pay any huge charges. So this might be something that they might disagree. Otherwise, the opening of Strait of Hormuz would be beneficial for everyone. Hopefully, peace is achieved. Oil supplies in the world are easily moved and inflation come down. The other triggering point which I'm seeing as a student of international relations is that Bab al-Mandab, the door of tears in Yemen, that is somehow seems to be that is the other place where a flashpoint might occur at a huge level. Bab al-Mandab, where a huge transit is taking place of goods from a very long time. Bab al-Mandab in Yemen, in front of Yemen and Djibouti. That might also be another Strait of Hormuz type crisis. So like the previous crisis, this crisis will only end up creating more problems. Hopefully, President Donald Trump will do some compromise. Hopefully, President Masoud Pezeshkian will do some compromise. So many lives are lost. So many innocent lives are lost. Hopefully, peace will be achieved.
Mr. Iftikhar, Qatar's Prime Minister has traveled to Tehran, while Oman and other mediators are also involved. How important are these regional mediators, and could they actually bring Washington and Tehran back to negotiations?
Pakistan, Oman, Qatar, they have all tried very hard. They have all tried regularly. They have all tried very hard. In fact, Pakistan has been doing negotiations from day one. Qatar has a huge influence on the United States of America. Qatar is a major regional power. Qatar is an economic power. They have hosted World Cup. They have provided jobs for their people. They have provided employment for the region. Definitely, Qatar has its influence on Palestine. It has its influence in Iran. I hope the Iranian regime would be more accommodative of any view given by the Qatari government. Definitely, negotiations will obviously break the deadlock. Like we did something that was very difficult. We did our best during the first round of peace talks. After that, Oman, Qatar, they have already tried their best. Ultimately, the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran would have to settle this thing on a table. War is not benefiting anyone. Iran has a huge stockpile of weapons. They have shown their weapons have not come down. United States of America has a huge military. They have a huge stockpile of weapons. Their weapons are not ending anytime soon. So it's best they hold negotiations. And yes, Qatar knows that a peaceful, stable Middle East is in the best interest of everyone.
Mr. Tayyab Iftikhar, thank you very much for joining us from Lahore and for sharing your analysis with us. We greatly appreciate your time and expertise. Thanks a lot.
Welcome, welcome. It is always a great conversation with you people. Thank you.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met Moldovan President Maya Sandu on Thursday. Moldova was marking its Independence Day days after Ukraine did the same. Sandu said Russian drones violated Moldovan airspace 5 times overnight during a major attack on Ukraine. One drone was later found on Moldovan territory. The two leaders discussed closer cooperation on security, energy and infrastructure. Zelensky voiced support for Moldova's EU membership bid, saying he hopes the two countries would eventually join the bloc together.
We support your way to EU, and I'm sure that it will be one day. I wish you not to wait too much, as I hope that we will be in the EU together.
Now we have a short break. Right after the break, we'll take a look at the remaining global stories. Stay with us on A News. We are back on A News with more stories. A violent incident at a private school near Berlin has left 2 people dead, according to German media reports. The victims, a woman and a man, were killed at a school campus in the town of Gosen-Neusiedl. A suspect was being taken into custody. Local reports say the alleged attacker is believed to be 19 years old and was the former boyfriend of a student who was killed. Police said the crime scene has been secured and there is no longer immediate threat to the public. Authorities have launched an investigation, while further details about the victims and suspect remain limited. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has called on the EU to keep its future budget affordable. Speaking alongside the leaders of Austria, Denmark and Finland in Berlin, Merz said current proposals could increase EU spending by up to 60%. He said the plans should be reduced by several hundred billion euros.
Überaus schwierigen und komplexen Verhandlungen zum mehrjährigen Finanzrahmen.
We want to conclude the extremely difficult and complex negotiations on the multi-annual financial framework, if possible, by the end of 2026. That's not essential, but it would be desirable if we can achieve it, because the next multi-annual financial framework enters into force on January 1st, 2028, and there should be clarity by then. Realism also means that the EU budget must remain affordable. The current proposals envisage an increase of up to 60%.
In Zeiten der Haushaltskonsolidierung in allen Mitgliedstaaten.
South Korea, Japan and the United States will hold joint military drills next month to strengthen readiness against North Korea's missile and nuclear threats. The annual Freedom Age exercise will take place from September 9th to 11th in international waters near the Korean Peninsula. Seoul says the drills are defensive in nature. The exercises come after U.S. President Donald Trump scaled back some joint military activities with South Korea and canceled the planned Marine Corps drill. Donald Trump has also been seeking renewed engagement with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un following their meetings in 2018 and 2019. At least 12 people have been killed in wildfires in Algeria. The country is grappling with the aftermath as communities assess the damage left behind. Here is more.
In Algeria, where wildfires have killed at least 12 people, firefighters continue to tackle blazes across several provinces amid a severe heat wave. Residents in the village of Anchid in Jijel province inspected the damage on Thursday, a day after the fires swept through the region. Algeria's Interior Ministry says 5 people were killed in Jijel, 4 in Bajaya, and 3 in Titsi Ouzou, while 54 others suffered burn injuries, including 6 in critical condition.
These wildfires have impacted all of us this year. We have not witnessed this in our entire life, never known in the history of this mountain. The fire has left neither the dry nor the green.
Fires came from the mountain in the Tagrast region at night, and in moments it spread everywhere with smoke. The person who was driving this vehicle was surprised by the fires, so he left it and ran away to save himself. We left our homes and ran away to town of Borj Tahar. We are sleeping out in the open. The fires destroyed everything.
Residents described the devastation caused by the wildfires, saying they have lost their homes and property as the flames swept through their communities. Algeria's Civil Protection Services recorded 154 wildfires across the country on Wednesday. Bajaya alone saw 36 fires, with 18 brought under control. The fires come as an intense heat wave continues to affect North Africa, particularly Algeria and neighboring Tunisia.
We have a short break. Right after the break, we'll take a look at the stories shaping the region. Stay with us. We are back on A News with more stories. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan addressed Robert Kocharyan's detention at a press briefing on Thursday. He said that former presidents Robert Kocharyan, Gagik Tsarukyan and Serge Sarkisyan should live on their pensions and legal income, and warned any assets acquired illegally must be returned to the Armenian state and its people.
If this is a question of giving instructions, I am not instructing the judicial system. I am demanding from it, especially since that judge has already retired. Go and look into his and his family's entire assets, both in Armenia and abroad. We are now cooperating with international anti-corruption networks, and Armenia's law enforcement system is cooperating with them. Go and see what his relatives are involved in. Could it turn out that they are, once again, talented business people, each a millionaire or even a billionaire? We have to go after everyone. Them, their mothers-in-law, sisters-in-law, brothers-in-law, everyone. They must explain why criminals like Serge Sarkisyan and Robert Kocharyan are still free.
Armenia is entering a new political phase as Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan pushes his Real Armenia agenda while confronting powerful figures from the country's past. Former President Robert Kocharyan is now facing corruption charges, while Pashinyan says illegally acquired assets must be returned to the state. At the same time, Armenia's parliament has approved the government's 2026 to 2031 program, prioritizing peace with Azerbaijan, normalization with Turkey, closer ties with the European Union, and diversification of the country's energy and security partnerships. So what does this mean for Armenia's domestic politics and its position in the region? Joining us from Baku is Akbar Novruz, a geopolitical analyst. Mr. Novruz, thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thank you as well. Happy to join.
Thank you. Mr. Novruz, let me start with Robert Kocharyan. How significant is the corruption case against Armenia's former president? And what does it tell us about the current political struggle in Armenia?
Well, of course, in one of my interviews regarding the parliament in Armenia, I stated that if Pashinyan wants to build the political willpower and the consolidation on significant issues, he needed to find a way to neutralize the opposition, and as it seems now, this is indeed happening. But perhaps in case for the Kocharyan's arrest, the other political powers arrest, this case simultaneously a legal event, a domestic political restructuring as Pashinyan assesses, and it has all those layers that has been connected between one another, and this whole assessment could be analyzed in way more, many point of views and layers. At the legal level, the charges have serious grounds. Of course, the question surrounding around Kocharyan's abusement of power during his presidency that happened in the 2008 crackdown, and the systematic looting of the state assets and the construction of political business networks in Russia, and as in return the establishment of Russian influence in Armenia's institutional architecture is of course not something that has been ambiguous, as they say. But what has been ambiguous for nearly 2 decades is whether Armenian government had the political will or any sort of consolidation in terms of establishing this kind of willpower on these figures. That includes Kocharyan, Sarukyan, and Serge Sarkisyan. Because the Kocharyan is regarded as one of Russia's closest political allies in the post-Soviet space, and persecuting him carried a huge diplomatic cost playing for Kremlin. And certainly, ever since the war in Ukraine, and all the countries in the post-Soviet space have been able to gain a room to breathe, as they say, because in the war in Ukraine has gave the countries surrounding the region in Russia, that includes South Caucasus and the Central Asia predominantly, being able to establish a willpower towards willpower and economic power as well in the long run. And Russia, of course, systematically exhausted its leverage instruments over Armenia in the past 2 years, as we have seen. The Armenian agricultural exports backfired, as we see, then it accelerated the opening of the European market to Armenian products, and with agricultural exports, the EU rising 80% over the few months, let's say. And the establishment of re-establishment of relationship between Azerbaijan and Turkey possibly has accelerated Azerbaijan's fuel exports to Armenia, removing the energy blackmail that has been tool for the Kremlin as well. But with all that political issues aside, this event also serves as a big, has lots of questions to answer, in my opinion, and this is more related between the Armenia's stance and Armenia's reforms, as Pashinyan stated. It needs lots of legal assessments, and this political reform is not going to be easy, in my opinion. But I would yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just want to ask the second question. Armenia's parliament has now approved the 2026 to 2031 government program. Pashinyan describes this as the beginning of a fourth republic. What exactly does he mean by this, and how different could this new political model be from the Armenia of the past 3 decades?
I think, in my opinion, in the grand scheme, this concept of fourth republic is, as much as it is politically ambitious, it is more institutionally underspecified, in my opinion. As Armenian Parliament adopted a law in March 2025 launching the EU accession process, Pashinyan has committed to applying to EU membership formally in the near future.
Yes.
And this idea and the format in regards to the statement of Fourth Republic, he is arguing around the fact that the First Republic that was established in 1918, that lasted through 1920, the Second Republic, which was the Soviet era, and the Third Republic was until a few days ago, which was from 1991 to present day. He is claiming that all those failed because they inherited institutional corruption, external dependence, and any sort of revolutionary chaos. This is indeed ambitious, but it needs lots of specification in every certain area. As much as Pashinyan says that in his new reform policy, he hasn't actually stated any sort of the relationship, the normalization of relationship between Russia and Armenia. As much as he is trying to diversify its ability, the political ability, the diplomatic ability, and economic, we cannot, of course, close our eye and imagine that Russia is not real or not available at the moment. They are, of course, there. And in regards to the aspirations with the Fourth Republic, they have, of course, the commitment as the signing a peace treaty with Azerbaijan and opening the Turkish border. And this is more focused on to the European Union. But the institutional challenge is that the EU membership requires harmonization of legislation across the trade, customs, competition, financial service, and the role of law frameworks with the body of European law that is in direct tension with Armenia's Eurasian Economic Union, Russia insisted. As for the ambition towards accession to the European Union, this could actually become the, as we stated before, that this whole the political figures of Armenia could actually become some sort of obstacle if they actually can't assess the whole process and legally assessing the whole process towards the European Union. Because as for the European Union, if I'm not mistaken, Armenia's judicial system, which has been criticized by the EU and its CEPA, which stands for the Comprehensive Agreement Implementation Assessments, for insufficient, and the European Union most definitely stated that it needs visible institutional reform to function as credible venue for politically sensitive prosecutions. And the EU rule of law benchmark process framework provides a useful external accountability structure for exactly this kind of proceeding. So it is ambitious, but of course, this is more of an idea in terms of establishing a fundament over the few years, and it needs to be assessed after the 2031 as the Fourth Republic ends, as Pashinyan says. It needs more time.
Mr. Novruz, energy diversification is another major priority. Armenia plans to select the technology for a new nuclear power plant by the end of 2027, while expanding renewables and energy storage. Could energy become one of the main pillars of Armenia's strategy to reduce external dependence?
Indeed, energy is one of the most vulnerable aspects of Armenia's political vulnerability. Now, Metsamar nuclear plant provides approximately around 30 to 35% of Armenia's electricity, but the Russian state entities retain significant involvement in plant's operational framework, and including that the Russian state entities also retain involvement in the, for example, Russian railways, in the infrastructure, the gas, and all the energy security is dependent on Russia. And Armenia sees that. Of course, Pashinyan has confirmed in his government program that Azerbaijani specialists have visited Armenian power facilities twice regarding the electricity supply and transmission infrastructure. And Armenia's goal is to reduce the dependency 100%, which is almost nearly impossible, but reducing the energy dependence is more related within the issue of decreasing the dependency from Russia, in my opinion. And the gap between that goal and the current reality is that practical policy work needs to happen. But in my opinion, the most realistic near-term energy diversification scenario involves specifically having electricity exports via new infrastructure, which is the route that Pashinyan government is discussing. As I'm certainly interested in that regard as well, which gives a great chance for the peace treaty and the hope prosperity being established in the region. Georgian electricity interconnection and renewable capacity has been accelerated in the Armenia. And of course, this all being accelerated and implemented is a gradual phase out of Russian energy dependence as transit and connectivity infrastructure is completed. But this whole transition is, as I said, the term is short, in my surprise, and this is more of a 10-year transition, in my opinion, not a
Akbar Novruz, we have run out of time. Geopolitical analyst joining us from Baku. Thank you very much for talking to A News. We truly appreciate your time and expertise. Thanks a lot.
Thank you as well for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kazakhstan is entering a new phase of a major political overhaul, with the government stepping down as the country's newly elected parliament begins its work. The changes follow the introduction of a new constitution, which has reshaped both the legislature and the process of forming the government. Our correspondent Fariza Kalimurzaeva has more.
Kazakhstan's government has formally stepped down before the newly elected Kurultai as the country begins implementing major changes under its new constitution. President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev has signed a decree confirming the government's resignation. The move is part of a planned constitutional procedure following the formation of the country's new legislature. But Kazakhstan will not be left without a functioning government. Prime Minister Uljas Bektenov, his deputies and the current ministers will continue serving in an acting capacity until a new cabinet is formed. Some of them could also be reappointed. The resignation comes as that new legislature begins its work in Astana. President Tokayev has opened the first session of the Kurultai, Kazakhstan's new 145-seat single-chamber parliament, which replaces the former two-chamber system of the Majlis and the Senate. The first elections to the Kurultai were held on August the 23rd, with 5 political parties securing seats. Opening its first session, Tokayev said the new parliament marks the beginning of a new stage in Kazakhstan's political system. And this is more than simply change in the structure of parliament. The Kurultai has been given broader powers and a greater role in shaping both the executive and the judicial system. Lawmakers can hold a vote of no confidence in their government and propose the dismissal of individual ministers. The Kurultai will also have a role in appointments to several key state institutions, including the Constitutional Court and the Central Election Commission. President Tokayev has nominated Aybek Dadibai to become the Kurultai's first speaker. Dadibai previously served as head of Kazakhstan's presidential administration and has led the Adilet political party since May. And once the Kurultai structure is fully in place, attention will turn to the formation of the new government. Tokayev says he will submit his nominees for vice president and prime minister to lawmakers before appointing the new cabinet following consultations with parliament. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
Hospitals are overwhelmed in Afghanistan as UNICEF says 3.7 million children are currently suffering from acute malnutrition. The latest figures come as the country faces a deepening malnutrition crisis. Our correspondent has the details from Kabul.
Afghanistan's youngest children are the most affected by malnutrition. That's what UNICEF is saying, adding that hospitals in some parts of the country are struggling to cope with the growing number of cases. According to the United Nations agency, 3.7 million children across the country are suffering from acute wasting, including around 1 million with severe acute malnutrition. Children under the age of 2 account for 83% of severe acute malnutrition cases, while nearly 40% of the children hospitalized under 6 months old have severe wasting and medical complications. Hospitals are under growing pressure, with some in southern Afghanistan treating 3 to 4 severely malnourished children per bed. Meanwhile, complicated cases have risen by a third, from 6,000 in July 2025 to 8,000 this July. UNICEF says the crisis is being driven by food insecurity, repeated droughts and floods, regional instability and growing pressure on jobs and public services. The return of more than 6 million people since 2023 has also placed additional strain on already stretched housing and health services. Funding shortages are also severely limiting treatment. UNICEF nutrition programs received just 22% of the $180 million it needs. This severe resource gap has forced more than 100 wasting centers to close this year. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
And this concludes our news update for the hour. Thank you for your time and for watching A News. Stay tuned for more.